On this special episode of Supercars Talk, it's time to review Jim Richards' 1990 HR31 Skyline model. This model is based on the 1990 HR31 Skyline that Jim Richards used essentially to set up his third championship win in the Australian Touring Car Championship. And this model, or this car, was built brand new for him for the 1990 season. Over the year, Jim won 3 races, although only 2 of them were in the HR31. The third race, 31 of the year, was in the mighty R32 GTR. Godzilla, as it was colloquially known. It was a nickname that was given to it in Australia. That came on later on in the season, and Jim had to, it made sense for him to make the swap over. The final 2 rounds, he had the mighty 32 GTR, and he took out the championship at Oran Park in the GTR, but we're talking about the HR31 today, so it is a little bit intertwined because of that 1990 season. The 2 races he did win in the HR31 were the season opening round at Amaroo Park. If you're as old as me, you'll remember that was a very, very small, Sydney-based circuit. Nothing really to Symmons Plains is probably the closest thing to compare it to these days, but it was a lot tighter and more stop-start in it. He also won the 4th round, which was at Winton, and once again, those people who are old enough know that pre-Winton had an extension. I think that was very early 2000s, which made it the track that we know today. But that was a very tight and twisty circuit back in the day. I think Dick Johnson said something like, it's like having a race around your clothesline. The old Hills Hoist back then. This was back in the days, there was only 1 race each weekend, hence there was only 8 rounds over the year, not the 42 or whatever that we have these days. So a lot less winning and podiums and things like that. Having said that, he also had 2 other podium positions over the year, 3rd at Phillip Island and 3rd at Malala as well. He had a 5th at Lakeside and a 7th at Symmons Plains. His 2 rounds in the GTR, as we explained, he did win the final round, which took out the championship at Oran Park, and he was 4th on his debut in the GTR at Wanneroo. I think he was leading that race, but they did have a little bit of a mechanical where they had to slow down. Scaife did debut the car at Malala, and he qualified badly, but then took off in the race before he had a mechanical failure in that car. It was very fast but fragile in that 1990 season. Jim ended up the season on a total of 106 points. Brocky was 2nd in 85 points, so it was a fairly big gap. Nothing like the thousands and thousands of points we get these days. You did have to drop your worst round back then, so Jim actually only ended up on 102 points. Brock didn't have to drop any points, so 17 points was the winning margin. I think it was 20 for a race win back then, so he was a fair way up in the championship. There was a fair few winners that year though. Dick Johnson and Colin Bond both took out 2 races each, and Brock had a win that year. All of them were driving the Sierras, and then Jim had his 3 wins in the 2 different Nissans. As I mentioned earlier, Scaife was Jim's teammate back in that season. His sister, HR31, absolute disastrous year. He had a mechanical DNF at Amaroo, did not qualify at Phillip Island. That was an engine problem. They appear to have only taken 1 car down to Symmons Plains. Back in the day, you didn't have to run every race. So you'd see, especially over in Perth and Symmons Plains, there'd be very, very depleted fields. He had an accident which caused a DNF at Winton. that was he was battling Alan Jones for second place. Back in those days, Scafie and Alan Jones did not get along too well. The highlight of the year for him, but believe it or not, was following his teammate Jim Richards home at Lakeside. He was under a second behind and finished in 6th position. That was the highlight for Scafie's first full-time year. Imagine if Brock Feeney had a year like that this year, where the highlight was sitting behind Shane in one race for 6th position. He'd probably be replaced. It wasn't that long ago I was saying, Brock Feeney's kind of year was probably a little bit disappointing, with that one win being the saviour at the end of the year. Look at how Scafie started in, the best tee with the best car. It was hard then because the Sierras were really coming on song at this point. A very disappointing debut year there for Scafie. Anyway, back to the model. This is my first DDA model I've purchased. I've been waiting for this one for my collection for an extremely long time. I even, years and years ago on the Bianti website, I don't think any of them do this anymore, but you could actually put down models that, you wanted to add to your collection as a suggestion for them, as, give them a bit of feedback of what people actually wanted. And this was the one that I put down. There was no other model that I put down in there. This was the one I've been after for a very long time. This is probably the most expensive model I have ever purchased. It is a full resin. It is very limited edition, as you'll see when we pop it open. But nearly $400. It took a deep breath before I ordered this one. But it was never going to be a big numbers one or anything. It is resin, blah, blah, blah. It is what it is. That's what we have to pay these days for these special models, which I very much appreciate these companies doing it. Time to pop it open and have a look. So here is the unboxing of the model. Great artwork on this one, actually. There's some pictures of the model and that, Nissan and whatever on there. There's a little bit of a blurb about the car, a bit of a photo of Jim with his Nissan. This is the actual car that Jim does own as well, in this plastic. I won't bore you with all of this unwrapping, so I'll shoot ahead at this point. Now, this is the first time I have opened this up, so you get to see it with me. We've got the certificate of authenticity there that you can see, signed by Jim Richards. A limited edition of 1,002 pieces. I hope that's coming through on the camera there. We've got some sticky tape to cut through. I have a nice big knife here. And here it is. Wow, okay. First impression, the blue on the back of the car is a very, very light blue. I was expecting that to be a bit darker. I'm not sure if it comes through in that picture there. It's a bit hard to tell. It does the blue looks quite, washed out there. Other than that, it's a very good looking model. They're kind of a bit, they are raised, the bonnet pins, but they are a bit stickery. They don't look quite right. Everything else is looking really good. It is screwed down, so I'll get something to unscrew it and we'll be back shortly. So there we are, 4 screws out, and that is the model as it sits. Really, really happy with it, actually. It's the blue's a little bit, underneath is a little bit plain. If you can see there, does have a limited, doesn't actually have what number it is. It does have, I'm not sure if that's coming up on the camera. The colours and that, other than the blue, the red looks quite right, the white looks good. It's a really good looking car. The front wheels don't turn like some of the others, but the quality and the detail is actually really good. Nothing opening because it is a resin model, but yeah, overall, actually just really happy with it. So that's my 1990 Jim Richards HR31 Skyline model. Let me know down in the comments, do you think it's worth the nearly $400 I paid for it? I tell you what, yeah, of all the criticisms I've just given it, I am very, very happy that it is part of my collection. Yeah, I've been waiting a long time for this one, so yeah, just excited to have it in the collection. Yeah, but let me know if you agree, and any suggestions for any models coming up that you'd like to see reviewed. But until next time, I'm still Dave, and I'll catch you later.